Every morning at 5:30, I tied my apron at Grandpa James' diner in Northeast Portland, serving coffee to tired construction workers and early bird retirees. My hands smelled like grease and dish soap. My feet ached, and I earned $8 an hour, plus whatever tips people could spare. Meanwhile, my older brother Jake would cruise past in his black Audi Q7 designer sunglasses on, leather briefcase in the passenger seat, heading to his downtown law firm, where he billed $300 an hour. He'd slow down just enough to smirk at me through the window, shaking his head like I was some kind of failure. When Grandpa died, Jake inherited the $800,000 house in the suburbs. I got the run-down diner worth $50,000, and I felt completely betrayed. I thought Grandpa loved me until I found the letter hidden in his old desk drawer. And everything changed. James' Corner Diner sat on a quiet street in Northeast Portland, Oregon, the kind of neighborhood where working families had lived for generations. The building was 70 years old with faded red vinyl booths, a checkerboard floor that had seen better decades, and a jukebox in the corner that only played songs from the 1960s. The neon sign outside flickered sometimes, especially when it rained, which in Portland meant almost every day from October through May. I'm Lily, 24 years old, and I've been working at that diner since I was 16. When I turned 20, I made the hardest decision of my life. I dropped out of Portland State University, where I'd been studying elementary education, because Grandpa James got diagnosed with congestive heart failure. Someone had to help him run the diner, and someone had to drive him to his cardiology appointments every Tuesday at the Providence Heart Clinic. That someone was me. My brother Jake, 28, had a different path. He graduated from Lewis and Clark Law School, landed a position at Morrison Fletcher downtown, and within 3 years became one of their top attorneys specializing in corporate litigation. He wore Tom Ford suits, carried a Mont Blanc pen, and lived in a sleek Pearl District apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. But here's what Jake didn't do. He didn't visit Grandpa. Maybe once every 2 months, he'd show up for 20 minutes, always checking his phone, always with some excuse about a deposition or a client dinner. He'd call on the first Sunday of each month, a perfunctory 5-minute conversation, where he'd ask how Grandpa was doing, but never really listened to the answer. I was the one who held Grandpa's hand in the cardiologist's waiting room. I was the one who learned to cook his signature blueberry pancakes, exactly the way he'd made them for 50 years. I was the one who stayed after closing, helping him count the register, even though his fingers shook so badly he kept losing track. Every Sunday, Grandpa and I had dinner together in the back booth. He'd make his famous pot roast, and we'd talk about everything. He told me stories about Grandma Ellen, who'd passed when I was just a baby. He told me how they'd opened the diner in 1973 with their life savings, $3,000, and a dream of feeding their community. He showed me the spot where he'd proposed to her, right by the coffee station. Jake never came to those Sunday dinners. He was always too busy. One Saturday morning in late November, Jake pulled up outside the diner in his Audi. He actually came inside, which shocked me and our regulars, Mrs. Chen, who'd been eating breakfast at table 4 every Saturday for 30 years, nearly dropped her fork. Tom, the Vietnam veteran who always sat at the counter, raised his eyebrows. Jake hugged Grandpa all performance and said loudly, "Hey Gramps, just wanted to check on you. You're looking great." Grandpa's face lit up. He always lit up when Jakey showed attention, even fake attention. It broke my heart every time. After Grandpa went to the kitchen, Jake leaned over to me and whispered, "Still slinging hash browns, huh? When are you going to do something with your life?" I bit my tongue. I wanted to scream at him that I was doing something with my life. I was taking care of the man who raised us after Mom and Dad died in that car accident on Interstate 5 when I was 12. I was keeping a community institution alive. I was learning what it meant to love someone unconditionally. But I just refilled his coffee and walked away, because that's what waitresses do. We smile, we serve, and we swallow our anger. Grandpa died on a gray Tuesday morning in February. I was holding his hand in his bedroom above the diner when he took his last breath. I'd called Jake 3 times. He showed up 40 minutes later, still in his suit from court, smelling like expensive cologne. He'd missed saying goodbye by 15 minutes. 2 weeks later, we sat in the conference room at Patterson and Howe, the probate attorneys on Southwest Broadway. The lawyer, a woman named Margaret with steel gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses, opened the file containing Grandpa's last will and testament. Jake sat across from me, perfectly composed in his charcoal suit. I wore the only black dress I owned, The one I'd bought at Target for $30. Margaret cleared her throat and began reading. The legal language was dense, full of words like harangue and bequeath and aforementioned, but the meaning was crystal clear. To my grandson Jake, I leave my house at 1420 Laurel Crest Drive valued at approximately $800,000 along with all furnishings and contents therein. Jake's face remained neutral, but I saw the satisfaction in his eyes. To my granddaughter Lily, I leave James Corner Diner, located at 833 Northeast Mason Street, along with all equipment, furnishings, inventory, and recipes valued at approximately $50,000. The room tilted, my ears rang. $50,000 compared to $800,000. The math was brutal, impossible to ignore. I'd given up college, my social life, my 20s to care for him. Jake had given nothing except monthly phone calls and twice yearly visits, and Grandpa had given Jake 16 times more than me. Under Oregon inheritance law, I could contest the will, Margaret explained. But contests were expensive, time-consuming, and rarely successful when the deceased was of sound mind. And Grandpa had definitely been of sound mind. He'd updated this will just 6 months ago. Jake stood up, shook Margaret's hand, and turned to me with that smile I'd grown to hate. For I guess waitressing really is your legacy, Lily. Don't worry, though. I'm sure you'll do great with the diner. Maybe you can finally fix that neon sign. He walked out, probably already texting his real estate agent about listing the house. I sat there frozen. Margaret touched my hand gently. I'm sorry, dear. I know this isn't what you expected. What I expected fairness. I expected recognition. I expected that sacrificing everything would mean something. Instead, I got a run-down diner with a leaky roof, outdated equipment, and a monthly revenue that barely covered expenses. The building needed a new water heater. The walk-in freezer made a grinding noise that meant it was dying. The booths were held together with duct tape. I drove back to the diner in my 12-year-old Honda Civic, the check engine light glowing on the dashboard like a tiny beacon of all my failures. I had student loans. I had rent due. I had an inheritance worth less than a used car, and I had no idea why Grandpa had done this to me. 3 days after the will reading, I went to the diner at midnight. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop the thoughts circling in my head like vultures. Why didn't he love me as much as Jake? What did I do wrong? Was I not enough? The diner was dark and quiet. I turned on just one light, the one over the counter, and started going through Grandpa's things. His office was barely bigger than a closet, crammed with filing cabinets full of invoices and receipts going back decades. His desk was an old wooden thing he'd bought at a garage sale in 1975, scarred and stained with coffee rings. I opened the bottom drawer, the one that always stuck, and found it full of personal items. Photos of Grandma Ellen, a medal from his service in Korea, a baby shoe that must have been my mom's, and underneath everything, a manila envelope with my name written in his shaky handwriting for Lily. Open when you're ready. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a letter, 3 pages, written in blue ink on lined paper. My dearest Lily, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone and you're probably angry with me. You probably think I love Jake more. That I didn't value everything you did for me. Nothing could be further from the truth. Let me tell you what I learned in my 83 years on this earth. People want different things, and sometimes love means giving them what they need, not what they want. Jake wanted the house. He wanted the money, the asset, for the thing he could sell and convert into numbers in a bank account. Jake has always measured his worth in dollars. That's not a criticism. It's just who he is. He'll sell that house within a month. I guarantee it. He'll take the money and invest it or spend it or lose it. And in 5 years, he won't remember what he did with it. The house means nothing to him except its market value. But you, Lily, you needed something different. You needed a home. You needed a purpose. You needed a legacy that couldn't be sold or spent or lost. You needed roots. This diner isn't worth much in dollars, I know that. The equipment is old. The building needs work and the profit margins are slim. But this diner is worth everything in memories, in community, in love. This is where I met your grandmother in 1972. She came in for coffee and I was so nervous I spilled it all over the counter. This is where your mother took her first steps, right there by table 7. This is where I held you after your parents died, and I promised I'd take care of you forever. Jake would sell this place in a heartbeat. Some developer would tear it down and put up condos. All those memories, all those mornings with Mrs. Chen and Tom and the Garcia family and everyone else who's made this place their second home gone. But you, Lily, you understand what this place really is. You know every regular customer's order. You know which booth Mrs. Chen likes, because the morning sun hits it just right. You know why Tom sits at the counter. Because he's lonely and needs someone to talk to. You see people really see them, and that's a gift most people don't have. I'm not giving you a building, sweetheart. I'm giving you a purpose. I'm giving you the chance to create something beautiful, something that feeds people's bodies and souls. I'm giving you the chance to build a legacy that matters. The diner isn't worth much now, but it will be. Not in money, though that will come if you work hard and smart. It will be worth everything in the ways that actually matter, in community, in love, in memory. Make me proud, Lily. I know you will. I love you more than all the pancakes in Portland. Grandpa, I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I looked around the diner with completely new eyes. The worn booths weren't just old. They were softened by decades of families sliding in and out. The checkerboard floor wasn't just faded. It was a map of millions of footsteps. The coffee stains on the counter weren't just stains. They were evidence of countless conversations, breakups and makeups, business deals, and birthday celebrations. Grandpa hadn't betrayed me. He trusted me with everything that actually mattered. I got up, wiped my eyes, and started making a list. This diner was going to shine. 1 year later, James' Corner Diner was unrecognizable and yet exactly the same. I'd kept everything that mattered. The booths, the jukebox, the checkerboard floor. But I'd updated what needed updating. New commercial appliances that actually worked. A fresh coat of paint in a warm cream color. Restored neon sign that glowed bright red without flickering. I'd partnered with local farms, adding a farm, toteable section to the menu while keeping all of Grandpa's classics. His blueberry pancakes, his pot roast, his coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Portland Monthly magazine ran a feature calling us the city's best. Kept secret, and suddenly we weren't so secret anymore. The lines on Saturday morning stretched down the block. Mrs. Chen still had her table and Tom still had his counter seat. But now they were joined by food bloggers and families from across the river and tourists who'd read about us on TripAdvisor. I'd hired 3 new staff members. I'd paid off my student loans. I'd moved into a small apartment with exposed brick and big windows. I wasn't rich, not by any measure, but I was happy. I was proud. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Jake, I heard through the family grapevine, had a different year. He'd sold Grandpa's house immediately, just like Grandpa predicted, for $795,000. He'd invested heavily in some tech startup his law firm represented. That startup went bankrupt 6 months later. Then one of his biggest clients sued him for malpractice, claiming he'd missed a crucial filing deadline. The Oregon State Bar opened an investigation. His firm let him go quietly. No announcement, just a cleaned-out office and a severance package that barely covered his legal defense. He lost his Pearl District Apartment. He lost his Audi. He lost everything he'd used to measure his worth. On a rainy Tuesday morning in March, exactly 1 year and 1 month after Grandpa's funeral, Jakey walked into my diner. He didn't swagger. He didn't smirk. He wore jeans and a wrinkled button-down shirt, and he looked smaller somehow, like life had physically diminished him. He sat at the counter. I poured him coffee without asking. We'd both learned that ritual from Grandpa. "Place looks good," he said quietly. "Really good, thank you. I heard you're doing well. Packed every weekend."
"We're busy. I'm grateful."
He stirred his coffee even though he drank it black. Finally, he looked up at me. "Lily, I need help. I lost my job. Lost everything, actually. I know I don't deserve to ask, but I need work. I'll do anything. Wash dishes, take out trash, whatever you need." I studied him. My brother, who'd mocked me for years, who'd called me a waitress like it was an insult, who'd taken 800,000 and blown through it in 12 months. Part of me wanted to tell him to leave. Part of me wanted revenge, but I heard Grandpa's voice in my head. "Love means giving people what they need." "Kitchen," I said. "Dishwasher. They're 10 an hour to start. You show up on time, you work hard, and you treat everyone with respect, especially the servers." His eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. It's hard work." He worked harder than I'd ever seen him work. He showed up 15 minutes early every shift. He scrubbed pots until they gleamed. He helped Tom his car when it rained. He learned everyone's names. 3 months in, he came to me during his break. "I get it now," he said. "What Grandpa was trying to teach me. He gave me money because he knew I'd lose it. He gave you something I couldn't destroy. He gave us both exactly what we needed." I smiled. "Took you long enough to figure that out. Family isn't about what you inherit. It's about what you choose to build." Have you ever felt underestimated by the people who were supposed to love you most? Have you discovered that the smallest gifts sometimes carry the biggest meaning? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, subscribe for more tales of justice, redemption, and family legacies that truly matter.